Heyo, you're listening to Edge Coach Quip, featuring our very own Edge coaches and community, dropping knowledge nuggets to fuel your day. Welcome back to episode 128. Why are we sitting like this? If you are listening to us, we're sitting with our legs crossed in a little bit of a yoga pose because today is all about
yoga and mobility.
And what the heck you need to do and why you need to do it.
All right, I'm unwinding here. This is great.
I can do those legs.
Yes, okay.
We'll get back to that position later.
Yes. Yes, as you know, this is a topic I love because I have been on my little yoga kick doing the morning routine.
Up to how many minutes?
Today was 27 minutes of yoga. And also mobility has been a bigger focus for me. I've been so excited to be coaching the Friday morning mobility classes. And I think it's just something that has been, it's like a secret hack for our athletes that's been overlooked. So yeah, today we're going to talk about the difference between mobility, yoga, flexibility, and then a couple of reasons that it's beneficial, right?
Yep.
All right, let's start off with some definitions, I think. Ground us in some language here. So mobility, what is mobility? Mobility has to do with your joints and range of motion. So mobility exercises improve a joint's range of motion and allow it to move without stiffness or pain, which I think maybe this is just because I'm getting older too. I'm like, yes, mobility, should have been doing this.
Feel a lot better now.
Yes, so it can also improve a little bit of the pliability of muscles, but when we're thinking about muscles, we're often thinking about flexibility and stretching, right? So stretching and strengthening exercises focus on engaging or lengthening muscles. Think about stretching your hamstrings as an example. Again, tight hamstrings, my example. And then flexibility. So flexibility is, usually we think of flexibility in more static positions.
Yeah.
Can also be part of, dynamic stretching can be a thing too, but I think that kind of leans for me more towards mobility. So stretching, when you can hold your body in a pose, you're holding 30 to 60 seconds in something. For flexibility, think about bending over and touching your toes. Mobility is going to help us through the motions of running and jumping. If you have mobile hips, for example, you can get your body in the position that it needs to have that extension through your back leg or the knee drive as you're running. So when your body is mobile, it means that you can move without limitation. And I think this also goes along with strengthening, right? So to be mobile, we have to have the flexibility and range of motion, but we also have to have the strength to hold our body at our end ranges of mobility and of those positions.
And not just totally collapse.
Yeah, so it goes hand in hand, and that's one of the reasons that yoga is so great. It is going to require some strength as you hold some of these mobility positions.
And mobility too, it really helps. It does help with injury prevention, but not only from overuse, but from crazy dynamic movements. Like when people slip on the ice, if they're more mobile and have better movement of their body and better control of their body, they're a lot more likely to be able to catch themselves, right?
Very true.
A lot of times people are like, oh, I need to do mobility to have a successful season. It's like, no, you also need to do it so that when you step off the curb, you don't sprain your ankle, right?
Yes.
Like it allows us to do both of those things.
Yeah, and just, I think about grandma trying to get up off the ground.
Yeah.
And that's a strength thing, but it's also a mobility issue that she can't swing her leg around to be able to get in a position where she can stand up. So it's extra important outside of training as well. A mobile body is one of the best ways that we can prevent injuries as runners and athletes. So in our bonus miles, we're going to go through 5 of the benefits of mobility, flexibility, and yoga.
All right, so we've got top 5 yoga benefits, aka bennies. These are not going to be a huge surprise, but it's something. This is one of those things. I'm the first to admit that when I'm short on time, my mobility work, my yoga stuff will go out the window, but I never feel better than when I do it. It can be 5 minutes and I feel better.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So go back and watch the habits one that we did in the last 15 or so, right? Mm-hmm. After episode 100, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be a huge amount of time doing it. Of course, At Edge, we actually just restarted our weekly yoga on Sundays at 9 a.m. Feel free to join us. edgeathlete.me/classes to find that with Coach Elissa. And we had a packed house the first week, which was pretty awesome. But part of that is because we're not as likely to do it, which is why the mobility classes have been so popular too. Like, we're not likely to do it on our own. So if you can't get to a whole class, just do a few minutes at a time. YouTube is a magical place. You too can find a 5-minute yoga. But 5 yoga benefits. Number 1, strength. I know, it's sneaky, isn't it? So we basically, when we are doing a lot of yoga moves, we're leveling up a lot of key muscles that we are using when we're running too, right? We're talking about definitely our core, our quads, our hamstrings, our glutes, upper body too, right? Really helping with upper body posturing, which we'll get to. They're all going to help us stay injury free. Again, as your volume builds, but also as you move dynamically, sometimes on purpose, sometimes on not, right? Mat work in particular, ground rounds are so sneaky, right? Because we at times think, oh, it's simpler, it's easier because it's on the ground. It's like, oh no, we're just using deeper things, right? So we are going to really be firing up that core when we're doing mat work. And yoga is a very symmetrical practice. If you do something on one side, you're going to be doing it on the other side too, which is going to reduce those asymmetries. It's going to help improve your overall kind of left-right composition, which is only going to benefit your strength.
It's also going to highlight some of those asymmetries for you as well.
Yes.
And when we're talking about yoga in the bonus smiles here, we're also talking about that dynamic mobility. You know, I think in terms of the way our classes are structured, I know my mobility class is yoga-esque. It's yoga-ish, right? It is focusing more on the practical movements that runners might use that don't have the yoga names. But certainly there are a lot of planks and down dogs that show up in there and a lot of the same moves. It's just not as structured as yoga is. So I think you can kind of use those interchangeably. And I will say there was a lot of planks in my yoga practice this morning. So definitely a strength component to that.
Burn.
Okay, another benefit here is flexibility. So this one I think is probably this is the one that I would think of right off the bat from yoga or mobility. Of course, you're moving your body through range of motion. It helps us to release tension and stress. So this can be a great practice either in the morning or at night. Like a bedtime yoga is just delicious.
It's different.
It does hit different. In yoga, because we hold a position for a longer amount of time, it can help us with that flexibility because it forces us to not just hold the position in a strength sort of way, but also to relax into it to get that mobility and flexibility piece.
Which it can be hot sometimes. I'm always surprised in yoga, like straight up yoga, I will sometimes just break into a sweat, just stretching, just in a static pose because your body is fighting it. And then eventually it's like, all right, we're relaxing.
Yeah, and it is that negotiation between like, what they say, surrender, right?
Yeah.
Letting yourself actually relax into a pose. But it can also help with your range of motion, your elasticity, and loosening up your joints and your muscles. So all of this has benefits for athletes in terms of being able to hold your position longer on a run or in a training session, to be able to run faster and longer, and to help primarily with that core stability, right? That your spine being the most important piece.
Yeah, because pop quiz, what is your body's number one job while running?
Keep your head up.
Stabilizing your spine.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. I mean, it's the same, right? Your head's on top of your spine.
Yeah, bowling ball.
Yeah, bowling ball and a toothpick. Exactly. So if you are able to be more flexible and have better kind of presence of core, you are going to have a more neutral spine, which is only going to help your running get that much more efficient. That's a theme you'll keep seeing. All right, number 3 of 5, breathing. Oh, breath work. We hear this so often. It's at the core of yoga, right? And I think it's really helpful, honestly, to be told when to breathe. I know, especially during things that are harder, a lot of us will try to hold on to our breath. And yoga really makes us mindful of when we're breathing and how we're breathing. So because of that, it's really increasing our awareness overall of our body. And we learn and teach ourselves how to relax, how to calm down, and how to really kind of navigate our nervous system and prime it. I say this all the time in class. Breathing is oxygen. Air is good, right? We want to be able to take air in and take it out. It helps us regulate our heart rate, ultimately helps us run faster and farther, because if we keep a heart rate, if we can breathe better, take in better oxygen, regulate that, our heart rate's lower, we can actually do more work with the same heart rate, which makes us just a more faster, more efficient runner. I also like to, when we do counts, like in a yoga practice, it actually ties very well with how people can get into rhythmic breathing while running, specifically while running, kind of like tempo. Tempo can be a grind, but if you're timing it with intake, inhale and exhale, it can be a really powerful tool. And because we're in control of that breath, and you really learn how to be in control of that breath, you might even experience less anxiety as you head into, we all get nervous before runs, especially speed runs, right? Or long runs or races, and it can help us navigate those times.
Number 4 is posture. So running can help your posture. And as you just mentioned before, your body's job is to stabilize your spine when you're running. And to be able to do that is, if we learn to do that naturally, like through our yoga practice, to not have to think about that position as we run, you're not only going to stand taller when you're not running, but it's going to help your posture while you are. And if we can run stronger with less tension, we'll actually increase our running economy. So getting your body to automatically be in the right position is key.
And being present of that. I know that with all the computer work, right, we hear, like our OP movement team here talks a lot about like the compression of the spine, because we're just here all the time on our laptops. Me too. I'm not judging. No shade. Yeah. Right? But if we have a way to naturally elongate it, we're really offsetting some of those bad habits that we're doing from 8 to 5. Last but not least, stress relief, right? So it's 2 parts. One is we're actually relieving the amount of stress that we might experience during an endurance event. And this one's interesting because a lot of, like, talked about sweating in a static pose, a lot of those poses that we hold really kind of mimic the hard parts of endurance, right? It is hard sometimes being in pigeon pose for 2 minutes at a time. But settling into that discomfort is not in any way different than settling into discomfort in a race. And you work through it and you find a way, and all of a sudden you teach yourself how to endure that, and that is a form of stress release, because now I've done that in this practice, I can also do it in this race. And the second, maybe more obvious way, is by relieving stress through relaxation. So we've talked about this in terms of how yoga uses the breath work, but it really promotes relaxation and gives you a lot of meditative techniques to help clear your mind up, whether that's in the moment. You can even speed up rate of recovery by integrating some of this in, because your nervous system is getting 2 thumbs up to go, right? And also encouraging a better night's sleep, which is also going to promote better recovery, which who doesn't want to get better sleep? Me. And more importantly, it's going to give you that clear mindset as you go into a big event. I think that this is one of the biggest benefits of being able to connect your mind and your body through a yoga practice.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to say that there are different types of yoga as well, right? So, our dynamic mobility, different than our yoga, but we have yoga that flows, you have like a power or a strength yoga,
or sculpt,
and then you also have that sort of restorative yoga where you might only be doing 3 poses for the 30 minutes that you do it, but you're spending a lot of time in there and using more of that breath work, which I think lends to that stress relief really well. And hey, if you are a person that does yoga just for Shavasana, like I hear you, that is also very beneficial. So there's no wrong way to do it.
So now you have all the reasons of what the heck yoga and mobility is, as well as the 5 top benefits. The last thing that you need to do is actually do it.
So go ahead and sign up for one of our classes. You can go to edgeathlete.me/classes to get our schedule. We have dynamic mobility twice a week. We have our yoga on Sundays. And if you can't make it in, we also have virtual options, or you could just use the internets. There are plenty of wonderful yoga and dynamic practices out there that you could get your hands on, whether you have 5 minutes or 55 minutes. There's something out there for you.
Go get it.
Thanks for listening to Coach Quip. Original music performed by Mend. Follow us online on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Edge Athlete Lounge. Our podcast lives in the blog section of our website. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast, and you can check out the show notes for additional ways to contact us. Ready, set, onward we go.